Welcome back to our channel. Have you ever listened to Jingle Bell Rock? Behind this eternally cheerful song lies the story of a forgotten country music pioneer, a star who burned brighter than almost anyone for one single miraculous year, only to spend the next 40 fighting in the shadows. This isn't just the story of a Christmas song, it's the story of Bobby Helms, a tale of talent, tragedy, and the haunting space between a life lived and a legacy left behind. Let's pull back the curtain on the man who will forever be Mr. Jingle Bell Rock. To understand Bobby Helms, you have to understand the world that made him. The America of the mid-1950s was a nation standing on a cultural fault line. The Second World War was a fading but still sharp memory. The economy was booming, suburbia was expanding, and a sense of wholesome Eisenhower-era optimism permeated the air. On the radio, polished pop singers like Perry Como and Pat Boone delivered smooth, safe melodies that mirrored this clean-cut ideal. But beneath that calm surface, something was rumbling. In the rural heartlands and the segregated cities of the South, the raw, emotional sounds of country and blues were beginning to merge, creating a new rebellious energy. Down in Memphis, a young man named Elvis Presley was swiveling his hips and setting the world on fire, terrifying parents and thrilling their children. Rock and roll was being born, and it was loud, dangerous, and undeniable. The music industry was a battlefield of identities. There was the sentimental, string-laden pop for the mainstream. There was the heartfelt, twangy storytelling of traditional country music, still echoing with the ghost of Hank Williams. And then there was this new untamed beast called rock and roll. An artist was typically expected to pick a side. You were one or the other. You couldn't be both. It was into this shifting, uncertain landscape that Robert Lee Helms was born on August 15, 1933. He grew up far from the glitz of Hollywood or the hustle of New York, in a tiny unincorporated town called Helmsburg, Indiana, a place literally named after his own family. Music wasn't a hobby in the Helms household. It was like breathing. His father, Fred, was a gifted multi-instrumentalist, and his mother, Hildreth, played piano. The family home was filled with the sounds of guitars, mandolins, and fiddles, a constant education in the roots of American folk and country music. From a young age, Bobby was a natural. He was a quiet, observant boy who soaked it all in. By the time he was a teenager, he wasn't just playing, he was performing. He and his brother Freddie formed a duo, the Helms Brothers, and quickly became local celebrities. Their big break came with a regular spot on a Bloomington radio show called the Monroe County Hayride. This wasn't some amateur hour. It was a serious regional platform, a miniature Grand Ole Opry for southern Indiana. Week after week, Bobby honed his craft, developing that smooth yet distinctly country vocal style that would one day make him famous. He was ambitious. He knew his talent was bigger than Indiana. He began making trips to Nashville, the undisputed capital of country music, knocking on doors and trying to get noticed. For a while, it was the classic struggle of a young artist: rejection, near misses, and the constant hum of self-doubt. But his talent was too obvious to be ignored forever. One night, while performing as the opening act for the legendary country star Ernest Tubb, everything changed. Tubb was floored by the young man's voice and charisma. He saw the spark. After the show, he pulled Bobby aside and gave him the validation he had been dreaming of, famously telling him, "Son, you don't need to be opening for me or anyone else. You're a star." Tubb made a call to his own record label, Decca Records, and urged them to sign Helms immediately. At Decca, Bobby was paired with a producer named Paul Cohen, a man with a golden ear for what the public wanted. Cohen saw something unique in Helms, He wasn't a rock and roll rebel like Elvis, but he wasn't a pure honky-tonk traditionalist either. He had a foot in both worlds. His voice had the sincerity of country, but the smooth polish of pop. Cohen believed he could sell Bobby Helms to everyone. He was right. And in 1957, their partnership would ignite one of the most explosive and tragically brief winning streaks in music history. The year 1957. For Bobby Helms, it was the kind of year that artists spend their entire lives chasing. It was a perfect alignment of talent, timing, and opportunity, a year of pure magic. It all started with a song called Fraulein. The song was a sentimental country ballad, a tale of an American soldier stationed in Germany who leaves his heart behind with a local girl. It was a story that resonated deeply with a post-war America, where thousands of GIs had similar experiences. When Decca released it, they were hoping for a modest country hit. What they got was a cultural phenomenon. Fraulein didn't just climb the country charts. It rocketed to #1 and stayed there for 4 weeks. But it didn't stop there. In a stunning crossover success, it climbed the pop charts as well, reaching the top 40. Most astonishingly, the song remained on the country charts for 52 consecutive weeks, a full year. It was a testament to its incredible emotional pull and to Bobby's masterful vocal delivery. He wasn't just singing lyrics. He was telling a story that a nation understood. Suddenly, the boy from Helmsburg was a household name. Most artists would be lucky to have one hit of that magnitude in their entire career. Bobby Helms was just getting started. As Fraulein dominated the airwaves, Decca released his follow-up, My Special Angel. If Fraulein was a song of heartbreak, My Special Angel was a sweet devotional ballad of pure love. It was even more successful. It shot to #1 on the country charts and soared into the top 10 on the pop charts, peaking at #7. He had done it again, proving he was no one-hit wonder. In the span of a few months, Bobby Helms had become one of the biggest stars in America. He was invited to perform on the most influential television programs of the day, including Dick Clark's American Bandstand and the undisputed king of them all, The Ed Sullivan Show. Appearing on Ed Sullivan was the ultimate coronation for an entertainer. It meant you had truly arrived. As Bobby stood on that stage, beaming under the hot studio lights, singing to millions of American families, it must have felt like a dream. He was the golden boy of country music, a clean-cut star with a voice like velvet, and a future that seemed limitless. And then, as the year drew to a close, he recorded one more song. It was a novelty tune, something fun for the upcoming holiday season. The song had been written by two men, a publicist named Joe Beal and a songwriter named Jim Booth. Their original version was a bit slower, more traditionally country, but in the studio something special happened. Helms and his producer Paul Cohen knew it needed a different kind of energy. They wanted to capture that new rock and roll spirit without losing the country charm. The key to this transformation came from the session guitarist that day, a man who was a legend in his own right, Hank Sugarfoot Garland. Garland laid down an electrifying, instantly recognizable opening guitar riff that was more rockabilly than country. It was cool, it was catchy, and it perfectly set a new, modern tone. They added the cheerful backing vocals of the Anita Kerr singers, and with Bobby's buoyant, joyful lead vocal, the song was transformed. That song was, of course, Jingle Bell Rock. Released in October 1957, it was an immediate hit, a perfect fusion of old and new. It rocked, but it was still wholesome enough for Christmas. It was country, pop, and rock and roll all rolled into one. It became the third monumental hit for Bobby Helms in a single year. No one could have known it at the time, but this fun little Christmas song would become his masterpiece, his pension, and his shadow. 1957 was his miracle. It was also his peak. The slow, painful descent was about to begin. Fame is a notoriously fickle beast. For Bobby Helms, the dizzying heights of 1957 gave way to a frustrating and bewildering slide. The hits didn't exactly stop overnight, but they became smaller and less frequent. Songs like Jacqueline and Just a Little Lonesome charted, but they never recaptured the magic or the massive crossover appeal of his 1957 trio. The momentum was fading, and a series of professional and personal storms were gathering on the horizon. One of the most significant professional blows came when his mentor and producer Paul Cohen left Decca Records. Cohen was the architect of his success. He understood the unique alchemy of Bobby's appeal. He was replaced by the legendary Owen Bradley, one of the creators of the lush, pop-influenced Nashville sound. Bradley was a genius who produced Patsy Cline and Loretta Lynn, but for whatever reason, the chemistry he had with Bobby never clicked in the same way. The production on Helms's later records felt different, less distinctive. He was getting lost in a rapidly changing musical landscape, and that landscape was changing at lightning speed. The wholesome rock and roll of the late 50s was being swept away by new sounds. The British invasion, led by the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, arrived like a hurricane, completely rewriting the rules of popular music. The smooth country pop sound that had made Bobby a star suddenly felt dated, a relic from another era. The industry and the audience had moved on. But the biggest battle Bobby Helms faced wasn't on the music charts. It was inside himself. The pressures of fame, the relentless touring schedule, and the frustration of trying to recapture lightning in a bottle took a heavy toll. He began to drink heavily. Alcoholism in the music world, especially in the hard-living country scene of that era, was tragically common, often romanticized as part of the lifestyle. For Bobby, it became a slow-acting poison. The addiction began to erode everything: his reliability, his finances, his health. Promoters became wary of booking him. Recording sessions grew strained. The same disciplined work ethic that had carried him out of Indiana was being drowned in a sea of booze and pills. His longtime manager, who had helped guide his career, eventually had enough and walked away. Without that professional guidance, Bobby's financial situation, which was already precarious due to the notoriously unfair artist contracts of the time, grew dire. He was caught in a cruel paradox. Every December, his name and voice were everywhere as Jingle Bell Rock blanketed the airwaves, a constant reminder of the star he once was. Yet, for the other 11 months of the year, he was a struggling musician, playing smaller and smaller venues, grinding it out on the road just to make ends meet. He was famous, yet he was broke. He was a Christmas icon who felt more like a ghost. The middle and later years of Bobby Helms's life were a testament to his resilience, but also a stark portrait of his decline. He never stopped working. He was a musician to his core, and performing was the one thing that kept him going. He toured relentlessly, playing state fairs, small-town theaters, and country music halls across America and overseas. He became a fixture at the Little Nashville Opry in Indiana, a place where he was still treated like the superstar he once was. For those who saw him perform in those years, the voice was still there. It may have been weathered by time and hardship, but it could still deliver a country ballad with heartbreaking sincerity. He would always play the big three: Fraulein, My Special Angel, and, of course, Jingle Bell Rock, which he often had to play even in the middle of July, a request he honored with weary professionalism. Sometime in the 1970s, a new feature became part of his public image: an eye patch. The stories of how he lost the eye vary. Some accounts claim it was due to a violent assault in a bar. Others suggest it was a result of a freak accident. Helms himself was often cagey about the details. Regardless of the cause, the eye patch added to his mystique, transforming him from the clean-cut boy of 1957 into a world-weary, almost piratical figure. It became a physical manifestation of the tough, hard-luck life he was living, a symbol of the battles he had fought and lost. He continued to record for various smaller labels, but a return to the charts was never in the cards. In interviews from this period, you can sense a mix of pride and bitterness. He was intensely proud of Jingle Bell Rock and its enduring popularity. He knew he had created something immortal, but he was also deeply frustrated. He felt he had been typecast, reduced to a Christmas singer. He would often complain with some justification that he never saw the massive royalties a song of that magnitude should have generated. Like many artists of his era, he had likely signed away his rights for a small one-time payment, never imagining the song would become one of the most profitable holiday tunes in history. His son John would later recall the complexities of his father's life. He remembered a man who could be kind and loving, but who was also haunted by his demons. He spoke of his father's frustration with the music business and his struggle to provide for his family while living on the meager income of a touring musician. The man the world heard for 1 month a year was a symbol of pure cheer, but the man his family knew lived with a constant undercurrent of struggle and disappointment. It was a heavy burden to carry, and over the decades, that burden began to break him down physically. Decades of alcoholism, heavy smoking, and a life spent on the road exacted a brutal price. By the 1990s, Bobby Helms was a very sick man battling emphysema, asthma, and diabetes. His body was failing him. Yet, even as his powerful voice grew strained and his energy waned, he clung to music. In his final years, he continued to perform when his health allowed. A profoundly tragic yet noble sight. Sitting on a stool on stage tethered to an oxygen tank, the tubes a visible sign of his desperate fight for each breath. He was a survivor still sharing the gift he had been given. Bobby Helms passed away on June 19, 1997, at the age of 63. The official cause of death was complications from emphysema. He died in Martinsville, Indiana, not far from where his incredible journey had begun. His passing was noted in the press, with most obituaries rightfully leading with his signature achievement. The singer of Jingle Bell Rock was gone. But for those who knew his full story, it was the end of a much more complex and heartbreaking American saga. There was no grand state funeral, no nationally televised memorial service. The man whose voice was an indelible part of the nation's holiday soundtrack was laid to rest with the quiet dignity of a local hero, not a global icon. He was buried in Hilldale Cemetery in Martinsville under a simple headstone that bears his name, dates, and the title of his most famous song. It's a humble final resting place for a voice of such magnitude, a testament to the life he lived after the spotlight faded, a life firmly rooted back in the Indiana soil that had first nurtured his talent. In the years following his death, something interesting began to happen. While Bobby the Man was gone, his music, specifically Jingle Bell Rock, embarked on a new life of its own. In the digital age of the 21st century, holiday music found a new home on streaming services and digital charts. Every December, as predictable as the first snowfall, this song would reappear on the Billboard charts, climbing higher and higher each year as new generations discovered it through holiday playlists and Christmas movies like Mean Girls and Home Alone 2. This posthumous success is, in many ways, the final bittersweet chapter of his story. The royalties that might have changed his life and eased his struggles now flow to record labels and publishing companies, a common tale for artists of his time. He built a timeless piece of cultural real estate, but he never truly got to live in the house. There's a debate that lingers around Bobby Helms's legacy. Was he just a one-hit wonder? To the vast majority of the public, the answer is yes. Jingle Bell Rock so completely overshadowed everything else he ever did that his other accomplishments have been almost entirely erased from popular memory. It's a classic case of an artist being consumed by their own greatest success. But to students of country music history, calling him a one-hit wonder is a profound injustice. This was an artist who, in 1 year, placed 3 different songs in the top 10 of the pop charts while simultaneously dominating the country charts. Fraulein wasn't just a hit. Its 52-week run on the charts was a historic feat of endurance that few artists have ever matched. In 1957, Bobby Helms was not a novelty act. He was a bona fide superstar, a pioneer of the country pop crossover sound that would later make artists like Glenn Campbell and Kenny Rogers millions. He proved that a country artist could appeal to all of America without sacrificing their roots. The controversy, if you can call it that, is one of memory and perspective. Is an artist defined by the public's narrow perception of them or by the full scope of their work? Bobby's story forces us to confront that question. He is both a Christmas immortal and a forgotten giant of country music. Both things are true, and it is in that contradiction that the real tragedy of his career lies. His life story is a powerful reminder of the person behind the song. It teaches us that the brightest lights can cast the darkest shadows, and that behind the simplest pleasures can lie the most complex pain. So the next time you hear that iconic guitar riff, take a moment. As the sleigh bells start to ring and Bobby's voice fills the room, maybe think beyond the snow and the tinsel. Remember the boy from Helmsburg, Indiana, who dreamed of being a country star. Remember the young man who, for one shining year, had the entire world in the palm of his hand. And remember the old troubadour with the eye patch and the oxygen tank, who never stopped singing, even after the spotlight had long since moved on. In that song, you won't just hear Christmas. You'll hear the entire beautiful and heartbreaking story of Bobby Helms's life. That's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button, drop us a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss our new content. Thanks for watching.